So, good afternoon. For those folks just coming in, there's still a few more seats back here, so please make yourselves comfortable. Thanks so much for being here today. What a well-behaved group you are. Welcome to Arizona's new Bioscience Roadmap. For those of you that I haven't met before, my name is Tammy McLeod, and I have the privilege of being the president and CEO of the Flinn Foundation. And we're really honored to present today's event in partnership with SRI International and the Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee, of which many of you are members. For those of you who don't know, Flinn is a philanthropic foundation, and we serve the entire state of Arizona. We concentrate our programming in 4 areas: that of arts and culture, civic leadership, higher education, and of course, the biosciences. And I'm pleased to look out in the crowd and see a number of Flinn scholars here today, as well as our Flinn Brown Fellows. So thanks for being here. Thank you to my colleagues in philanthropy who've joined us today. I'm very appreciative. And also to Flinn board members. I see Adam Goodman in the past. Adam, wave your hand. Scott Robertson, I believe, is with us today or online. And then, of course, our board chair, Dr. Eric Ryman. I'm grateful for your presence. And if you also did not know, later this month during Arizona Bioscience Week, Dr. Ryman will receive the Arizona Biosciences Lifetime Legendary Leader Award. I know that I'm not quite right with that, but thank you. Another big welcome and thank you to the Honorable Kate Gallego, who has joined us today, the Mayor of the City of Phoenix, and we are very grateful for her presence and her support. You know, for 25 years, we have made biosciences the primary focus of the Flinn Foundation. And bioscience is research, its development, its commercialization of discoveries that prevent disease, that improve health, and that enhance agriculture. In 2002, in order to move the innovations that were taking place more rapidly to serve the people of Arizona, the Flinn Foundation commissioned the first Bioscience Roadmap. And we have served Arizona's Bioscience Roadmap ever since then. So today, you're going to hear about the progress that was made over the last 2 decades. We're going to talk about the new roadmap, which is designed to be a living document and to guide our shared work over the next several years. And then we're going to hear some reactions from local leaders, and I'm hoping from all of you, because this is a time for you to give us your feedback. Tell us what excites you about this plan, but also tell us where you see challenges and be able to speak up about those so that we can work together to address them. And for those of you on Zoom, I hope you will all share your comments as well. We're delighted that you're here today. And now I'm pleased to introduce one of the state's true champions of education, of biosciences, and of health policy, my friend Heather Carter.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy, what day are we on? Thursday. This is our 3rd iteration of the launch of the new roadmap. And so it is just super exciting to be here in the city of Phoenix as our final sort of rollout of the roadmap and to have the mayor in attendance. This is a true testament to your commitment to the bioscience and growing this industry in the city of Phoenix. And I have no doubt with your leadership, we will become the premier location for biosciences, not only in Phoenix, but the entire state of Arizona. So without any further ado, I would like to just give you a little bit of history of how we got to where we're at today. I currently serve as the chair of the statewide Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee, and this is a really important day. But it's also an important day for the entire state of Arizona because if you think about the biosciences, it affects each one of us, not only professionally, but personally. It impacts our individual and our collective health, and it impacts our collective well-being, both economically and personally. So, where have we been and where are we going? If you look at the previous iterations of the roadmap, let's go back all the way to the beginning, to 2002. The roadmap was originally commissioned by Flinn, and it was developed by the Patel Research Group. And it was truly put into action by statewide leaders. And then it was renewed in 2014. And then today, the new roadmap debuts. So if you think back across all of the different policy areas we have in Arizona, to have this sort of longitudinal roadmap for the state is absolutely remarkable. And I would challenge you to find another roadmap like it in any policy area across the state of Arizona. So our colleagues from SRI are here today, and they will explain, this new roadmap is a true collaborative result of the work that you've engaged in with SRI and with the Flinn Foundation. It's a product of research, looking at global trends, best practices, looking at our unique ecosystem characteristics, and they conducted hundreds of interviews. Just a quick show of hands, how many people did an interview with SRI as part of this roadmap? So it'll be fun to watch how our words showed up in the roadmap moving forward. And then many of those leaders that participate in our Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee were very important to this process. So I just want to say thank you for that time commitment, because we couldn't do this without you. So then, if you look at what the steering committee is truly responsible for, it's responsible for the recommendations. There are over 100 members from across the state, including scientists, workforce experts, investors, company founders, universities, government leaders, elected officials, and more. And I am truly grateful for the partnership of my vice chair, Dr. Jennifer Barton from the University of Arizona. You're going to hear from her on today's panel. She launched the roadmap in Tucson, and I launched it in Phoenix. Tammy, I think you are now officially at all three events, so it's been a busy week for you today. And today we'll be able to celebrate that accomplishment here in Phoenix. And I have to give a shout out to my predecessors. So the previous chairs include Skip Rimza, Marty Schultz, Ron Schutman, Mark Slater, and Eve Ross. It's through their leadership that we've been able to arrive today at this new roadmap. So thank you to all of them. So what have we really seen since the first roadmap launched? In fact, even before the roadmap was released, the people of Arizona provided their support to the biosciences. They laid the groundwork. In November 2000, the voters approved a modest tax increase, and it had a major impact. This included funding education and research at our universities. We also saw the founding of institutions like the Bio5 Institute at University of Arizona and the Translational Genomics Research Institute. And what followed was absolutely extraordinary. The creation of more linchpins, such as the Critical Path Institute, AZ Bio, which is the statewide industry association, the Banner Alzheimer's Institute, the Biodesign Institute at ASU, the Pathogen and Microbiome Institute at NAU. This is all a collective product of that initial foundation, which received support from the voters in 2000. Continuing, though, with that, if you look at, we have Roche Tissue Diagnostic and Caris Life Sciences. They arrived in Arizona by acquiring homegrown Arizona companies. Incumbents like W.L. Gore and Mayo Clinic, they have seen extraordinary expansion. And our startup community has grown with the emergence of companies like Neolite, GT Medical, Web PT, and Delta Development. And these are just among many that have been supported by our risk capital funders. So when the roadmap began, Arizona had one allopathic medical school at U of A in Tucson. And now, if you advance to today, we have added 4 more. We have U of A in Phoenix, their College of Medicine. We have the Mayo Clinic Alex School of Medicine and the Creighton School of Medicine. And then next year, ASU will be in the mix. So along the way at important moments, many local state leaders have really rolled up their sleeves and have devoted precious resources to strengthen both the education and the research in healthcare and the bioeconomy. And then voters have gone to the polls and have done the same. So the steering committee at Flinn have tracked these quality markers of progress through the years, and they've also monitored key quantitative metrics to show how we're doing. And then how do we compare nationally? Because that's what we really want to do. We want to be at the forefront of competition for the bioscience industry. So let's share a few of those statistics. We're going to start with the bioscience research and development. One critical indicator is research performed at our universities. So alongside their education missions, ASU, NAU, U of A are powerful engines of discovery. And they work in the biosciences, as you can see, and then they've become increasingly more competitive, outperforming the nation as a whole. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And they bring more than $800 million to our economy in the most recent year measured. So without questions, disruptions in federal funding is going to make this much more challenging. And then for us to maintain this level of commitment and performance, it is important for all of us to come together, including state, local, philanthropic funding, as well as partnership with industry. And that is something that we're going to take careful watch of in the Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee. So now let's move to NIH funding. Funding from the National Institutes of Health, which is, many of you probably know this, the largest biomedical research funder in the world, has long been recognized as the absolute gold standard for states' research competitiveness in the biosciences. And Arizona reached an all-time high in 2024. And then more importantly, we are ahead of national growth in recent years. And this is truly a testament to our universities and the highly active research programs that exist across all of our healthcare delivery systems and independent researchers. So now, what happens next? Let's look at capital funding. So to translate that research into action and turn them into discovery and products and services and companies absolutely depends on securing venture capital. And we have great news in this space as well. In 2024, Arizona was close to an all-time high, which is great news and important to startup companies. But we also want to see Arizona get a more meaningful share of the national pie. And we seem to be moving in the right direction in 2024, which does represent the highest share of the pie since 2019. But there is a very long way we need to go. So now let's move into the regional employment. So where we have excelled most consistently since the roadmap began is in the creation of jobs. And like every single part of the economy, the bioscience is subjected to regional influences. And as you see, the fastest growth, where the total private sector is growing the fastest. But note how far bioscience exceeds the growth rate of the total private sector across the state. And then in each of the metropolitan regions, biojobs have grown twice as fast as the private sector. And then if you're looking at non-hospital bioscience jobs, the rate is triple the private sector. And my fun comment up in Flagstaff, if any of you have young kids at home in school or kids in college, tell them to go into the biosciences. I tried. My daughter did not want to go into it, but I digress. Maybe in the future. Health policy, right? So now let's look at statewide employment. It adds up to this extraordinary picture of the biosciences in Arizona. For more than 20 years, the bioscience jobs, which are absolutely good paying jobs at every level of education and training, they have grown steadily. And when you look at the private sector as a whole, you see the years-long impact of the Great Recession. And then you also see the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic. But when you look at the biosciences, you see steadiness and resilience. This is something I know that lawmakers look at the Capitol, our city elected official teams look at, and this is something that we need to celebrate. I don't think this is standard news around the state, and so it's our job as not only the Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee, but people here today is to share this good news. So now it's really an exciting time. It is time to learn about our new roadmap. And before we do so, we have a video queued up for you to watch. And if all the technology works perfectly, I'm going to hand it off here and have you press play. Thank you guys for your support.
In 2002, Arizona set out on a bold mission to become a national leader in the biosciences. With vision, collaboration, and commitment, the state launched its first bioscience roadmap, commissioned by the Flinn Foundation. a blueprint for innovation, economic growth, and impact. More than 2 decades later, Arizona's bioscience sector has grown dramatically, transforming our economy and improving healthcare in the state and beyond. Today, we build on that momentum with the next generation of our roadmap, refined, re-energized, and ready for the future. With statewide input from Tucson to Flagstaff, we've established 5 bold goals. Amplify the collaborative gene to unlock new opportunities. Accelerate research to solve scientific, health, and community challenges. Elevate Arizona's startup ecosystem to empower entrepreneurs. Strengthen talent and career pathways. Tell Arizona's bioscience success story. This isn't just a plan, it's a call to action for innovation, for opportunity, for Arizona. The next chapter of bioscience in Arizona starts now.
Well, if that didn't get you excited, I don't know what will. Thank you, Heather. Thank you to the Flinn team. The progress in bioscience in Arizona has truly been remarkable and extraordinary, and has been an honor for the SRI team to work with the Flinn Foundation and so many of you in the development of the roadmap. I'm Christy McFarland, Executive Director and SRI Center for Innovation Strategy and Policy, and I'm joined today by my colleague Dylan Solden, who served as the project leader for the roadmap, and will speak with you in just a moment. So just quickly, Tammy had mentioned in the beginning of her remarks sort of how we define the biosciences, right? So bioscience fundamentally is applying science to some of today's most pressing needs, from diagnosing and treating disease to advancing food security and sustainability. In Arizona, interestingly, the sector is defined across 6 subsectors shown here. This definition reflects the breadth of Arizona's bioscience economy, from globally recognized research labs and hospitals to manufacturers and distributors to community and rural health providers. The inclusion of hospitals in particular is unique to Arizona's definition. By including hospitals, Arizona emphasizes the sector's full continuum, from discovery to patient care, and the critical role of health systems in translating bioscience research into real-world impact. Just turning to how we developed the roadmap, we heard a little bit about this already, but over the past 15 months or so, SRI's process ranged from developing data-driven evidence base to deep engagement across the state and beyond. We began with a comprehensive innovation ecosystem assessment. We explored states' bioscience research capacity, commercialization infrastructure, workforce dynamics, industry presence, and policy environment. We assessed not only just these individual assets, but how effectively they align and interact to drive innovation. Next, we examined emerging innovation indicators. We analyzed trends in publications, patents, trademarks, and startup formation. These are all the leading signals of knowledge creation and commercialization. Third component was workforce and talent analysis. We assessed bioscience program completions across 50 institutions, labor market demand via job postings, and retention rate of Arizona's graduates. We also mapped how emerging technologies like AI are reshaping bioscience roles, requiring greater agility in training pathways. We conducted benchmarking against comparable peers of Colorado, Utah, and Washington, as well as aspirational leaders such as North Carolina and San Diego region. We examined metrics such as NIH funding, academic R&D, venture capital flows, patents, and talent outputs. This provided not only a comparative lens to gauge Arizona's position, but also highlight strategies that have worked in other leading ecosystems. Throughout the project, which you've heard extensively even at this point, we paired the analytic foundation with extensive engagement, hundreds of interviews, focus groups, surveys across regions, institutions, and sectors. Stakeholder input shaped the strategic framing, ensuring that the roadmap goals not only address data-identified gaps, but also reflect the lived realities and priorities of Arizona's bioscience community. We synthesized these findings into a SWOT analysis, providing a rich snapshot of Arizona's competitive position to advance bioscience. Here's just an inventory of some of the engagement activities, as well as sort of the full participant list of those of you who've engaged with us throughout this process. So thank you so much. Now, we want to set the stage and provide the context for the roadmap. We heard already about the history and the progress within the state. We also want to explore some of the trends impacting the bioscience sector. Since the start of the project in mid-2024, we've tracked several trends across 3 dimensions: market forces, science and technology, and care delivery. In terms of market forces, the sector is recalibrating after its pandemic boom. Capital is still flowing, but investments have slowed, exits are harder, and investors are more cautious. Venture capital is concentrating on early-stage companies with strong data, while acquisitions are focusing on high-demand areas like obesity, cardiovascular disease, and autoimmune disorders. Big tech companies are entering health markets at scale, and GLP-1 drugs for obesity and diabetes have enormous impacts on patient health, but also the broader healthcare economy. Turning to science and technology trends, medicine is becoming increasingly personalized with growth in wearables, smart diagnostics, and targeted therapies. AI is moving from concept to clinic, and we're seeing growth in neurotechnology like brain-computer interfaces. There's also a surge in women's health innovation, particularly in fertility, menopause, and diagnostics. Hospitals continue to invest in robotic surgery, especially for orthopedics and cancer, and we're seeing meaningful progress in Alzheimer's therapies. This is a moment of convergence where breakthroughs in biology, computing, and engineering are happening together, and they're happening quickly. Turning to care delivery, models of care are evolving rapidly toward virtual and hybrid approaches, but challenges remain, particularly given that rural and retail-based care and delivery and access is uneven. Just turning to, in addition to these trends, we also examined some more macro forces that are at work. We know and have alluded to, of course, that federal research and workforce funding remain uncertain. Policy changes are on the horizon, and Medicare reform to drug pricing can reshape the incentives for providers and companies alike. Supply chain resilience is also top of mind, with reshoring and biomanufacturing gaining urgency. Finally, FDA approval timelines are in flux, creating risk for startups navigating the path to market. In short, today's bioscience landscape is defined by both uncertainty and momentum. And it's within this environment where we're launching the roadmap today. Looking ahead, even with those challenges, Arizona is well positioned with world-class research universities, hospital systems, embedded global firms, and growing talent pipeline. Arizona also benefits from cross-sector synergies, linking bioscience with semiconductors, defense, and AI in few ways other states can match. Arizona has the opportunity to be a national leader in select bioscience domains while tackling health challenges that matter most to its residents by doubling down on collaboration, strategic investment, and a shared narrative about Arizona's bioscience future. With that, I'm pleased to turn it over to my colleague, Dylan Solden, to dive into the project findings and roadmap details. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Over the next 7 or 8 minutes, I'm going to go through some of our key project findings, and then we'll leave plenty of time to introduce the new roadmap, as well as get to our panel discussion. Building off of some of the remarks from Heather Carter earlier in the day, I wanted to first share not only about Arizona's growth across core bioscience metrics. This growth is not only strong, but it is nationally competitive, with Arizona's 5-year growth rates across these metrics ranking in the top 10, sometimes in the top 5 across US states. Part of our job is not only understanding the growth, but putting this in the comparative. This chart here shows that we need to continue this nationally competitive growth to close this gap between benchmark states, as you've seen here, and other national bioscience leaders. As you can see in that top row, Arizona often ranks in the mid-20s in aggregate for these key metrics, with the exception being number of firms at 14. So there's still a lot of work to do to break into that top 10 or top 15 of US states. Taking a step back from the numbers and thinking about sentiment, again, it was important for us to understand how people on the ground like you all really feel about the ecosystem. So in our statewide survey, we asked, the sentiment revealed a clear focus on growth, innovation, collaboration, while acknowledging the difficulties posed by underfunding, some disorganization. Sentiment from Greater Phoenix in particular highlighted its emerging thought leadership and some fragmentation and silos. For those of you in the audience and on Zoom from other parts of the state, I'd like to share that Northern Arizonan input in particular aligned with these themes, but also focused on the state's regionally unique and specialized bioscience ecosystem. In Southern Arizona, sentiment included that the ecosystem is interdisciplinary, diverse, scrappy, and across the state, challenges with integration and coordination were mentioned. This chart and the next really demonstrates how far the ecosystem has come over the last 2 decades, showing Arizona's bioscience research environment. The leading universities, health systems, nationally recognized research institutes, many brought together through strong partnerships and innovation hubs that co-locate people, magnify impact, and generate excitement about the biosciences. This strong foundation has enabled several research strengths, which are shown here. You will see several important research areas where Arizona is conducting novel research and making impact in areas like bioinformatics, medical devices, diagnostics, oncology, pediatrics, precision medicine, aging and longevity, and more. This slide shows the many supporting organizations in the state, the chambers, councils, nonprofits, all working together to strengthen the sector statewide through advocacy, business development, company recruitment, and workforce development activities. The continued success of the ecosystem, and this is something that we've talked about on the roadmap, really depends on these organizations and other contributors to the ecosystem pulling in the same direction. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about workforce. First, we've estimated over 25,000 bioscience-related post-secondary completions from your certificates up through Ph.D.s in 2023. This lands at 12th among US states. More than that, Arizona's post-secondary 5-year growth rate was at 9% compared to a -1% national decrease. With this competitive growth and output, we still tracked some challenges. First, several prominent bioscience roles experience labor shortages where job demand exceeds job supply in several key biotechnician roles that require graduate medical education, and engineering roles. We also tracked graduate retention across 3 types of programs: your biomedical and biological programs, your engineering programs, and your medical residency programs. While these retention rates ran between 51% and 57%, these still trail other Southwest and West Coast peers. Several priorities also came through our deep statewide engagement with Greater Phoenix contributors to the ecosystem. On the left, you'll first see some regionally focused priorities from making collaboration easier through simplified core facilities agreements. We also talked about statewide priorities like developing a unified PR campaign, broadening bioscience career pathways, and advocating for policy changes. On the right, we turn to some key research and technology area priorities, where you'll see priorities in fields like AI, med devices, precision medicine, and more, which we think nicely align with biotrends and the strengths in the region. We developed versions of this slide and showed earlier in the week in Flagstaff and Tucson, so I just want to show them here for those on Zoom. But some of the key differences include Northern and Southern Arizona's regional priorities that often focus on company recruitment to their regions, as well as things that align closely with some of the statewide priorities from Phoenix, including things like strengthening biocareer pathways, improving messaging. Both Southern and Northern Arizona leaders called out the importance in community engaged research and enhancing, again, the connectivity throughout the state. We've hinted at our benchmark analysis a few times so far today. This slide shows some of the core themes and success markers identified across benchmarks, with some examples of the policies, programs, and ideas that we tracked. These include things like North Carolina's BioWork biotechnician certificate program that enables accessible industry-aligned training. It also includes Colorado's Hub for Health Impact that helps drive growth outside of its core Denver anchor city, as well as Utah's Innovation Fund that funds collaborations between startups and academia. Integrating all of the data collection and analysis from this project and in the roadmap, we conducted a SWOT analysis. This is just a preview, so I encourage everyone to use the QR code on the back of their agenda to see the full document. But Arizona's strengths focus on its institutional leadership, research specializations, emerging industry clusters, competitive growth rates, skilled workforce, growing bioeducational pathways, and business environment. Weaknesses tend to focus on some fragmentation, lack of awareness, some gaps in education spending and K through 12 outcomes, some challenges in workforce attraction and retention, and robust resources to support bioscience commercialization. Opportunities tend to focus on greater collaboration and partnership opportunities, particularly those that solve critical health challenges. And threats focus on shifting policy and legislative priorities, federally and statewide, as well as competition from other regions, other biosectors, bioecosystems, and industries in the state. Wrapping up these key findings, we found that Arizona's bioscience ecosystem is at a pivotal moment, demonstrating nationally competitive growth while facing some key challenges and threats that, if strategically addressed, could position the state as a rising national bioscience leader. The foundation is strong, with Arizona's world-class universities, research institutes, health systems, large-skilled workforce, network of convening and supporting organizations, and expanding entrepreneurial resources. Gaps in things like ecosystem coordination, commercialization infrastructure, bioscience funding mechanisms, and more limit the state's ability to take these strengths in the foundation into a sustained competitive advantage. A clear priority was accelerating alignment throughout the state, something we heard not only internally, but also something that was externally validated as a marker of successful bioecosystems across the U.S. So I think with that, we'll actually talk about the new roadmap. We'll go through the vision first, and then I'll talk through some of the goals and strategies. So the vision for the 2025 to 2030 roadmap, where will we be by 2030? Despite some uncertainties, there's a clear path forward. I'd like to share the 4 components of the vision. First, the recognition as a national rising bioscience leader. Second, Arizona leans on its core assets and strengths, a skilled talent base, research activity, dynamic industry growth. Third, we are defined by our core DNA. We are agile, collaborative, and courageous to bet on the so what, the discoveries that strengthen the economy and Arizonans' health and quality of life. Next, I'd like to share the 5 overarching goals for the roadmap. Each of these has between 2 and 4 specific strategies with several priority action items and text in the full roadmap. First, amplify the collaborative gene. Amplifying institutionalized collaboration that not only aligns bioscience stakeholders across the state, but also leverages complementary sectors and forges new opportunities across other states and connectivity with global markets. Second, accelerate research into impact, really taking research into practice to the next level, increasing the scale, speed, and success of translating bioscience research to solve key scientific, health, and community challenges. Third, elevate Arizona's startup ecosystem, providing the resources and support needed to launch, grow, and retain bioventures. Fourth, strengthen talent and career pathways, really better attracting, developing, and retaining industry-aligned talent, truly propelling Arizona as a residence of choice for workers and a destination of choice for bio companies. Fifth, tell Arizona's bioscience story. Arizona's bioscience ecosystem will be recognized in state and out as a national leader for its contributions to health outcomes and economic growth. So as I said, we're going to go through briefly some of the strategies that fall under each goal. Again, I encourage you all to use the QR code on the back of your agenda to look at the amazing website and the full roadmap text. For Amplify the Collaborative Gene, number 1, update Arizona's Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee. This group has been an anchor in informing and helping execute the roadmap over the last 2 decades, and this strategy addresses some ideas to increase its impact. from refreshing membership and making sure that we're including all the critical bio leaders across emerging bio subsectors throughout the state. Also recruiting the next generation of bio leaders in Arizona as we pass the baton. The facilitation of regional chapters of the steering committee to pursue local projects and further develop our regional bio identities. And the activation of new project teams. We talk about a workforce alignment project team and a marketing communications team in the roadmap. Second, enhance the impact of AZ Bio, bringing more support and resources to enable statewide impact. Similar orgs to AZ Bio and other peers in competitor states have a much larger staff and resource base, and we'd like to change that. Third, build connectivity with other technology-intensive industries. Think semiconductors, AI, optics, aerospace, and defense. And fourth, engage complementary bioecosystems in the US and abroad to generate industry activity. For our accelerate research into impact, first, we start with strengthening partnerships to accelerate bioscience commercialization and tech transfer by providing more infrastructure to support intentional and actionable collaborations between research institutes, health systems, and industry, and more quickly develop and scale technologies that align research activity to market needs and community needs. Some of the how-tos that we talk about in the roadmap include centralized directories, streamlined engagement processes, incentives to share risk in translational research, and the consideration of research consortium models. Second, create a statewide commercialization network, really building on ABOR's tech transfer initiative to ensure that bioscience-specific commercialization expertise is available throughout the state. This expertise is distributed through regional coordinators, those that can understand local bioinnovation landscapes and bring resources to tackle local challenges. Third, the development of statewide research initiatives that are focused on major diseases and public health priorities. It will eventually be important for us to make strategic focus bets in areas of high local and global need to, again, build off of some of Arizona's strengths, rally resources to specific causes, and further propel Arizona's status as a leader in that space. Think, for example, an initiative focused on healthy aging that leverages the state's strengths in medical devices, diagnostics, and neurosciences, or one focused on precision medicine that leverages our strengths in oncology, genetics and the omics, diagnostics, clinical trials. Third, elevate Arizona's startup ecosystem. The overarching component of these strategies is really trying to build that entrepreneurial community where different types of entrepreneurs, bioventures can really plug and play in Arizona. The first strategy, diversify the investment base. Bring more funding and different types of funding to the table. We need to get creative in uncertain times. Some of the how-tos include bringing more high net worth individuals into existing angel networks, strengthening our existing angel networks, establishing a new bioscience and healthcare sidecar innovation fund, increase participation in existing bioscience investment networks, as well as joining multi-state partnerships to rally resources. Second, scale innovation and commercialization programs, bringing more bioscience-specific expertise and entrepreneurship training to the table. Third, build a statewide bioscience incubator network. Offer more bioscience-specific facilities that lean into specific research specializations or regional challenges at our existing research and innovation infrastructure. As you all know, bioventures face specific and often prohibitive costs and technical needs, and providing more bioscience-specific incubation facilities can help those startups that are in between their seed funding or their initial entrepreneurship program before being able to have their own facility in Arizona. And we think that this can really help with that talent and company retention, so startups can really launch and grow in Arizona. Think something like precision ecology-focused incubator at 850 PBC, or a biomedical informatics-focused incubator at SkySong, diagnostics therapeutics at U of A Center for Innovation, agricultural biotech at the Yuma Center of Excellence for Desert Agriculture, and the list goes on and on. For goal 4, strengthen talent and career pathways. I find that strategies 1 and 2 flow nicely with strategy 1, unite education institutions and employers to align needs. This is really establishing that collaborative infrastructure to and shared discovery process to understand real-time workforce needs as they change very rapidly, into two, implement and scale effective workforce development programs. This is sourcing and then adapting and funding those industry-aligned and high-impact programs that fill immediate workforce needs. And three, establish a bioscience talent concierge, supporting our research institutions, health systems, and companies recruit those high-level galvanizing individuals that can continue to make a huge impact and mark on Arizona. This includes providing things like the soft landing services, think helping find housing or education or spousal job support, really just making it easier for those individuals to migrate to Arizona and call Arizona home. Lastly, tell Arizona's bioscience story. Strategy one, promote and position Arizona as a bioscience hub with a coordinated communication plan. A unified narrative is really important here, aligning our messages to showcase the full landscape of bioscience activity happening across the state. Really making sure that we're reaching different segments of the ecosystem from our policymakers, investors, researchers, students. Second, advocate for policy to enhance competitiveness. In the benchmarking analysis in the roadmap, we talk about some leading bioscience hubs that have billion-dollar funding mechanisms and incentives to spur bioscience activity. And while we acknowledge that this might not be the most likely thing to happen here now, the roadmap still calls out several important policy gaps that would help increase the competitiveness for the ecosystem. So some of these include incremental funding to existing bioscience endowments, like the Arizona Health and Innovation Trust Fund, SBR STTR matching program, strengthening the existing angel investment tax credit, and the long-term continuation and protection of Prop 301 for TRIF dollars. Lastly, I wanted to introduce our roadmap action matrix, which is featured on the roadmap site in the executive summary. So again, please use the QR code and check those resources out. This matrix really helps map example actions across three core dimensions: those that fortify assets to safeguard bioscience capacity in the state, to extend progress on existing strengths, and lastly, enable leaps through bold, transformative actions. We really think about this matrix as a tool for you all to help you all talk about the roadmap and the emerging and continuing to grow bioscience ecosystem in the state and plan next steps. We see it helping with protecting and supporting greater alignment around key priorities, continued momentum, and ultimately remaining agile during this period of uncertainty. You'll see some actions here for safeguard assets, like updating the roadmap steering committee or improving processes to facilitate more applied research partnerships. For your extend progress, you'll see actions like expanding modular learning pathways in an emerging skill area like AI, for example. You also see the development of that coordinated communications plan. And then some leap forwards include things like, sorry to go back and forth, but attracting new global bio companies to Arizona via acquiring existing and homegrown startups or launching that biotalent concierge. Ultimately, find that the roadmap strategies really reflect a balance across these three dimensions to really, again, build on what's working here, stay resilient, and strike when opportunities for those transformative actions emerge. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Christy for our panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. Excellent. So now's the fun part. We get to have our panel discussion. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll hear from a group of outstanding leaders representing different parts of the bioscience ecosystem from here in Arizona. Following our conversation, you all in the audience, as well as on Zoom, will have an opportunity to ask questions. So please, especially if you are on Zoom, please drop your questions in the chat, and we'll integrate those into the Q&A portion. For others of you here, just keep your ears open as your questions come to you, jot them down, and you'll have an opportunity at the end for Q&A. With that, I'd invite the speakers up. First, Dr. Jennifer Barton is the Interim Vice Provost of Health Programs and Chair of the Biomedical Engineering Department at the University of Arizona, and of course, Vice Chair of the Roadmap Steering Committee. Next, Jerry Cabrera is the president of Elevate Southwest, a nonprofit that bridges higher education with industry for the greater Yuma region. Next, the Honorable Kate Gallego, Mayor of City of Phoenix with over 20 years of public service and management experience. Next, Dr. Lara Ferry is the Vice President of Research at ASU's Knowledge Enterprise and President's Professor. Last, but certainly not least, Dr. Rick Gray. Dr. Gray is CEO of Mayo Clinic in Arizona. Wonderful. All right, as they get mic'd up. So we're going to start this session today with a question about your impressions of the roadmap. And we'll start, Mayor, with you. If you want to talk to us a little bit about what goals and strategies do you feel are particularly well aligned with some of the local momentum here in the region of Phoenix?
Wonderful. And first, I think on behalf of all of us, can we get a round of applause for Flynn for doing this work for us? I really like to start with that because it's important for us to discuss, can we come together and do big things as a community? Can philanthropy, academia, private business, government do big things? And we ought to appreciate that we have done that here in Arizona. We made an intentional decision that we wanted to improve our healthcare, our biosciences, our economy, and we have all worked together to do it. That is something we should really be proud of, but it would not be possible without Flynn. So thank you for what you've done to convene all of us. I think mostly friends here, but for those of you who don't know my background, I have an MBA in entrepreneurship and was actually planning to be in the startup world, but fell in love with local government and what we can do. When I ran for mayor, I had 3 focuses of my television commercials, and one was biosciences. If you don't watch a lot of commercials for people running for mayor, that is weird. It's very unusual, but I think it made so much sense for us. These are jobs that work for our community and the full spectrum from MD, Ph.D. to folks with a certificate. It's all educational backgrounds. They are great high-paid jobs, paying on average $20,000 more than the other jobs in our community, which in mayor world is really good news. You want your residents to have high quality of life, high income. So it makes sense from that, but also the local impacts. Dr. Trent at TGen likes to talk about how much it helps when you can have the best healthcare in your community, right? When you're sick, no one wants to go travel. Part of the reason I think I'm so passionate about this is while I was running for mayor, my mom was fighting stage 4 ovarian cancer, and she got to have incredible care at Mayo. She got to have her tumor, the folks at TGen help look at the tumor and figure out, or one of her tumors, and see what were the best possible treatments. And you want that for everyone in your community. So I hope that I can take my personal experience and pay it forward. I am blessed to have a Phoenix City Council who agrees with me. So unanimously, we are investing in a wide variety of ways, which I'll talk about today. 2 to start with, we have time and time again gone to our voters and gotten their approval. Our voters were very supportive of bringing the University of Arizona to downtown Phoenix. Most recently, they made a big bet on ASU Health, which will include that new medical school in our downtown. You know, I'm very lucky to be a mayor who has so many different universities, NAU, U of A, Creighton. We also have some that didn't even make the chart, right? I was just at a graduation for Tufts Medical School, doctorate of physical therapy. That was in downtown Phoenix. Claudia Whitehead, who's here, just worked to help bring University of Jamestown with a master's in pathology program. We have all these wonderful partners here. And so really exciting for us. The retention item in the roadmap really is one we are trying to work on. When we were at Tufts, we were saying, we got to go there when they get here and start the program and talk about many of those students in particular travel to the program. It's a combined program where you see people do a lot of the work remotely. but can we get there at the beginning and talk about why Arizona is so wonderful and why they might want to stay here and what are the opportunities from the great medical institutions we have here to companies like WebPT, where you can really use your degree in very interesting areas. I think we're probably doing better with some of our partners about studying the city, but we really have so much to offer. And I don't know that all of our students know about what is in front of them. So that's one of our areas we are very excited about.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. And I think that talent retention piece is certainly something we'll revisit. We'll come back to. So for the rest of you, in terms of what resonated most from the roadmap, I would just love to hear a little bit of an opening for how the roadmap aligns with the work that you're doing and the priorities that you see for the state.
Well, I certainly appreciated the research. It's great to see the amazing leaps and bounds that have been done with our state's universities as well as the other organizations here and working together with industry. One of the things I think is so important is that we work together. And for instance, we just finally brought a Clinical and Translational Sciences Award in. So we have partners with ASU and NAU and Mayo and Banner and Phoenix Children's. And so it's great to see these linchpin, really solid research grants coming to Arizona and us getting recognized for the great work and the great people we have here. And certainly, great appreciations to TRIF Proposition 301, who made a lot of that available and ask for that to please go forward.
Well, at least for me on Elevate Southwest, one thing that I did learn, it was not a novel idea of partnerships. I think it had to come from fruition because this issue of great reset that we're currently having is a huge impact of moving forward. And this is the time that we have to partner up, especially with grants, funding, and this kind of puts this together for us to make sure we follow, especially for the rural Arizona. There's a map from Arizona Tech Council that they have as far as IT and semiconductors. But one thing that I don't see is none of the rural areas, because everything is happening from Flagstaff all the way south, right? So we never see rural Arizona. And that's one thing that this kind of helps us put together is make sure there's an umbilical cord to rural Arizona into the basic sector.
That's great. And that's something I want to come back to as well. Thanks for bringing that. Yes, Lara.
Also coming from the research and partnership perspective, agree wholeheartedly with what has been said. And one of the things that I noted particularly was called out too in the summary today, we aren't in the top numbers in some of those areas that were presented, but we are in the top numbers in terms of those number of industries. And another area we're actually in the top 10 is number of clinical trials. So we have some raw material here that particularly in this moment that you just pointed out, we should be capitalizing on and strengthening sort of that partnership approach to advancing, all the way to the level of patient care here in Arizona. And I think there is an opportunity there right now for us to rethink how we do that and take advantage.
Great. Thank you. I'll come back to you on that as well. Yeah, Dr.
Yeah, I agree with many of the things that have been said so far, but so I guess I'll just emphasize I really like the terminology of research to impact. And that translation of research to actual impact, and I'll talk mostly about the healthcare sector within biosciences here, is so extremely important. In a lot of places, including at Mayo Clinic, when we think about research, a lot of the metrics that we look at is what are your total research expenditures? How much federal funding are you bringing in? What percentage of your expenditures are based on different funding mechanisms? How many people have you accrued on trials? Things like that. And we always come back to say, in the end, that only matters by how many lives were touched, how many lives were improved, how many people were cured that wouldn't have been able to be cured a year ago. And so we like to say that really research is about bringing innovative products and services to patients. And that goal we have to keep in mind and keep the goal separate from the metrics. And so that translation to impact is extremely important and certainly something that, you know, we feel very highly about when we're recruiting scientists at Mayo Clinic. That's what we tout. If you want to spend time focusing on a protein and a molecule all on your own, this isn't the place for you. But if you want to get something into a patient and actually have an outcome, this is the place for you. And I think Arizona is that kind of place for us as well.
I think absolutely. And it's wonderful to have Mayo here in Arizona. And the sentiment, I think, when we were doing our engagement and across the ecosystem is that patient impact really is where the rubber hits the road and is the critical driver for so much of the work that's happening. Okay, I want to turn back to one of the areas that we talked about. Jerry, you had mentioned tying in rural areas and tribal communities as well. Where do you see that happening, either currently, or what are some of the greatest barriers to enhancing that greater collaboration and partnership?
You know, there's this old cliche, very old cliche. As far as it takes a city, it takes a village, right? Those things are long gone. It takes a state now. It takes a state, and for us, it has been an area of making sure that not all of us have the expertise within our communities to have sort of partnerships that need assistance from tribal communities and or the rural areas, right? So for us, has been very important to make sure we collaborate with the universities. Obviously, we do have all three universities present. Others have been more assistance than others, which includes U of A and their tech parks. For the tribals and some of the areas, I think it hasn't been used as much as we should have. On the roadmap, actually, it states that's one of the weaknesses that we have. And we might make sure that we collaborate and grow that strong partnership, because there is a lot of things that have to do with water issues that the state still needs to fix. And those are biosciences. YCETA is doing a perfect job on making sure the biosciences with water and other areas still collaborate with, make sure there's that tech transfer that has been tremendously, and the roadmap also states that. So even with the universities and the hospital itself, one thing that I've learned in the last year or so, everyone's willing to help. And that's one thing, as you mentioned, that this state is willing to assist those rural areas, rural communities, as long as we extend our hand and making sure that there's someone to listen and help you move forward. We can't do it all by ourselves, and that's very important. We'll ask, actually, you know, the city of Phoenix or Mayo or Tech Council or obviously Flinn Foundation, but use our resources across the state and leverage those, because that's the most important, vital, distinguished here in the roadmap that will definitely move us forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm staying on that theme of some of those sort of critical actions to help elevate the state. Mayor, I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, you know, as Arizona continues to grow as one of the nation's fastest developing biosciences state, what do you see as one of those most important actions to elevate, continue that growth within the state for biosciences?
As the political person on the panel,
Yeah.
I would definitely, government funding is really key. We talked about Prop 301, and that was a big theme throughout multiple roadmaps. For many people in my line of work, we think major funding may need to come directly from the voters at the state level. Just for political reasons, it's complicated for the legislature to be raising taxes. And so in many ways, that's very good news, because I think our residents are with us. When we did our Phoenix General Obligation Bond, our voters were thrilled about the ASU health investments, and they really wanted to do it. I think voters have been very enthusiastic about supporting Valley-wise health in the past, and I suspect at our county level, they will do that come this November election. We have a complicated relationship with the state of Texas. But one thing they're doing well is funding, and they have gone to their voters with a statewide ask on cancer. It had different types of investments in different parts of the state. So in some of the rural communities, smoking cessation and tobacco-related cancer was a more of a focus. In Houston, a lot of academic research and medical. But I think it's really possible to come together and find something that works for the entire state. When I talked to Mayor Nichols in Yuma, one of his focuses is workforce development and making sure there's the employment staff for their medical institutions. It's in other parts of the state, they are just worried that they're gonna be able to keep hospitals open, and we have sort of opportunities and challenges right now. Medicaid funding is so important to so many of us right now, and that's a real concern. At the same time, as federal funding for healthcare research goes down, the states that have local funding sources will benefit, right? That we are already seeing people who are losing federal grants, but going to places, including Texas, that have local funding for research. So there will be winners and losers, and in many ways, the folks with the capital are well poised to be the ones who benefit from the great shakeup happening now.
Yeah. Jennifer, do you want to respond to that? I know we talked about that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the things I see with the state of the Arizona now is that we are at a perfect spot. We're big. Nobody can say that we're just a little scrappy frontier state anymore, right? We are growing. We are on the map, but we are not too big. We're not too big that we can't all fit here in a room in the Flinn Foundation and on Zoom and Zoom in from all over. And all of us care about what's going on in all corners of the state. And so that's a real opportunity for us to develop our own regional plans about how we're going to excel regionally and how we are going to synergize with the other areas in the state. Because science, research, medical care, everything is getting more and more expensive, and we cannot afford to duplicate having the same assets that can be shared across the state. So I think now really maybe, 10 years from now or even 5 years from now at the end of the roadmap, it may be too late. We may be big. We have the opportunity now to think, to reach out, to synergize, to say, okay, you're going to invest in X, I'm going to invest in Y. We're going to share our assets. We're going to work together. And I just think that's really, really critical. We've got to do it now before we get too big, because at some point in time, growth is amazing and growth is exciting, but at some point in time, it will actually start making things harder. Now is the time.
Yeah, I think we heard at one of the other events, we have the scale without the problems of scale yet. So, strike while the iron's hard on that. Okay, Lara, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, talk about cross-industry collaboration as a driver of innovation. I think particularly in Arizona, it's critically important that we sort of explore that as an area for growth for biosciences. Thinking about adjacent fields like AI and advanced manufacturing, what do you see as the most promising cross-sector collaboration that should be supported in Phoenix or statewide to advance the biosciences?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. There's actually a handful of opportunities there that I think Phoenix is poised and Arizona are poised to take advantage of. And you mentioned advanced manufacturing for one, and thinking of the ways in which we can make devices smaller, more compact, more energy efficient, but also less expensive. The driving factor has to be the cost, so that the consumer, the patient, can use the product and the people around the state can feel the benefit of that. So advanced manufacturing can lead the way in getting to that endpoint, efficiency and cost being among those. But I also think that we have a really neat opportunity to look across. AI is everywhere. You have sort of the AI and part where sort of AI is kind of helping everything. Maybe we can analyze data better. We can, do certain tasks faster. But then there's the study of AI itself. How do we make the AI more energy efficient, for example, or quicker at being able to process certain things, able to handle larger and larger data sets. And as we think about these things, we'll need to come together across the ecosystem and data in particular and figure out how we will be able to share all this information that we've been collecting actually for a very long period of time. And then building on what Jennifer said, making sure we're taking advantage of that, not necessarily duplicating, moving things in the best way forward, putting those in the right places so that we're not duplicating in time and space. And because resources are going to get more and more challenging, and patients are going to need to be able to go to the places where they can receive the care at the end of all of this, right? So figuring out how we can use some of those tools to make really good decisions and really move forward in exactly the right ways would be really powerful.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and we're seeing so much more of that integration happening. Rick, I'd love to hear from you if you want to reflect a little bit on Lara's comments and how you're seeing that impact, specifically, patient impact.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many opportunities for collaboration. And what's exciting to me is we can't always predict where those synergies will happen. And, it's been an area of emphasis for us. Number one, having the humility to recognize there are a lot of smart people, a lot of smart organizations, a lot of dedicated people trying to come up with solutions. And so how do we provide opportunities for them to intersect? And the more opportunities we can do for those intersections, number one, we're going to have the best ideas emerge and therefore be able to be selected. And the more we can do it in more of a platform approach where those solutions are more visible, so more people can decide and vote with their feet and dollars and other ways of, yes, this is what's most promising, keep bringing it forward. So I do think that there are an extraordinary number of opportunities, and we need to do it both in the physical world and in the digital world. So, Mayo is one small piece of this, but we're launching Discovery Oasis. That's in the physical world. Let's bring in a lot of different diverse types of organizations that are working in healthcare innovation and healthcare technology, and see what comes out of that, of having everybody close together and doing those collaborations. And then through Mayo Clinic platform, taking AI in healthcare and saying, how do we have everyone have the best access to a distributed data network that can have the breadth and depth and heterogeneity of data to actually get valid solutions that are broadly applicable. But the rules of the road are, then those solutions stay available on the platform to anyone who wants to be on the platform and take them in. Now, in a sustainable way. So I think there are so many opportunities, and Arizona is such a collaborative place. When new people come here and new organizations come here, Arizonans step up and say, welcome, how can we help you? Oh, you want to accomplish that? Here's how we can do it. So those types of things where we create opportunities for those synergies to emerge, even when we haven't predicted them, I think can be a great way for our state to keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. And a lot of what we've seen and developed in the roadmap really comes down to helping to facilitate that, right? So it's not just, okay, everyone is welcoming, everyone is helpful, but how do we do that in a more systemic way to really help bring in others who may not necessarily have access to a mentorship network, for example? And how do you help make those bioscience specific as well? Okay, we have just a few more minutes. So those of you on Zoom and in the audience, please get your questions ready. I'll toss one more question out to the panel, and you can each take an opportunity to reflect and answer before we turn to the Q&A. We'll start with you, Jennifer. What is one strategy, asset, or opportunity that we have not yet discussed today that can help catalyze long-term bioscience success in Arizona?
Well, I want to amplify the idea of mentoring. Again, we touched on it a little bit, but I think this is really critical because what we heard a lot yesterday in Tucson was, I had to go out as an entrepreneur and figure it out myself. And then the next person would say, I had to go out as an entrepreneur and figure it out myself. Or I wanted to move from this sector into the biosciences and I didn't know where to find lab space, or I didn't know where to find capital. We have that information available here today. We've got incredibly brilliant people here and people who want to help. So coming up with some sort of mentoring platform where we can reach out and connect with each other is going to be really critical. So I'd like to see that going forward.
Great, thank you.
You're absolutely right. I concur with that because we're having the same issues. And at least in the Yuma area, we're building an innovation hub for accelerated programs and entrepreneurship, but also having experiential learning for our students via college and or obviously high schools, because that's where it starts, right? As you discuss the workforce in itself and the talent, we have to keep it. But if we're pushing them out, going somewhere else to learn these type of specific biosciences, they're not coming back. But if you have that experience for them going into these type of careers, they'll definitely stay. They'll definitely work out in the state of Arizona, wherever that may be. But we have to give them that roadmap and be able to be successful in whatever career choice they may have, entrepreneurship and or career sciences.
Thank you for bringing us back to that talent retention question. Having those career pathways is critical. Yeah, Mayor.
One thing we're trying to do at the City of Phoenix is get more exposure for our companies, particularly our early stage companies. So the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is really important for technology companies. The city was able to take a delegation there to help expose our companies to investors, to partners. So My Health, which is incubated through Mayo's program, went with us and got to show how they can help people stay at home or get more of their care at home, but get the high quality monitoring. And people were so excited to see that. We have an incredible diversity of companies in women's health, which you talked about earlier. We have some very inspiring folks we are trying to support at the city who want us to be the leaders in femtech. And I could not be more supportive of that. We already have a great core of companies to help. We take a delegation to the Bio International Convention. The City of Phoenix sponsors Startup Stadium, which gives our startups guaranteed access to pitch investors and to be seen on that larger stage. Exciting this year, we had women-led companies that were pitching, which was also very exciting. But we're really trying to say, we have great things happening here. Can we as the city help shine a light on these companies and get them more exposure? The other economic development agencies are also partners and working with us on that, but that's something we really want to take to the next level.
Great, thank you.
So I'm under some pressure to come up with a fourth thing.
Well,
You got it though, done.
Great.
So we focused on mentorship and mentees, pipeline of workforce development, and then the companies and the ecosystem. So to bring another flavor, and I want to focus on the researchers, the faculty or the researchers at companies or in that system. And one of the things that jumped out at me in the presentation was tapping into the collaborative gene. And I love that from my background. But the other thing to keep in mind is actually that evolution favors the selfish gene. So what we have to do here is create the incentive structure that'll really help people come together and to create collaborations that will be, they can see a long-term path for themselves with a lot of reward, and they'll sustain that and pull people in. And so rethinking or adding to the ways we think about things like seed grants. And seed grants are push funding, but maybe then also pull funding, which rewards you for success. Just a lot of ways we can play with the system and create an incentive structure around balancing that gene interaction.
Great. I think we had some quotables in there. That's it. Yeah, Dr. Rose.
Yeah, so I found it interesting how a lot of the minds, as we talked about, what are we a little worried about? A lot of the minds went to the entrepreneurial startup sector in some way. There was some connection there, and you talked about scale earlier. And so I do worry about our scale right now and being able to grow that and how important that mentorship is to do that. So I want to just wholeheartedly agree with that. I think, all of us at our organizations, when we think about bringing people in and saying, how do you make them successful? We usually say mentorship first, time second, resources third, right? And so with the startup community, when you don't have quite the big critical mass yet, it is going to take some concerted efforts. But that relates then to, I guess, what I would add to the conversation, which is retaining that idea of compounding commitment. If we go back to when the first roadmap started and think about where we were and how hard it was to get started, and yet now we're talking about the current roadmap, which is building upon all of the things that came out of that. So even in these areas where we worry, oh, we've got to get enough mentorship and get past this critical mass for our entrepreneurs and so forth, the commitment will follow with some building, and that will be able to be compounded upon by whoever comes next and whoever comes next after that. And so just maintaining that commitment so that it will continue to compound into the future, even on some of these hard things, is really important for all of us to keep in mind.
Great, thank you. I think that's the perfect close to our panel, don't you think? All right, we have a microphone. Very good. I think we have a question here.
I'll just be loud.
We have the Zoom, so we need to use the devices there, yeah.
Mike Patterson, Spencer Payne, we're a sponsor with the Mayo MedTech ASU Accelerator and Phoenix BioCore. But I want to give credit to Eric Bob from your Discovery Oasis at GPEX Healthcare Innovation Council last week asked a great question. He said, when do I see emerging through all of our plans? When do we get to drop the emerging and say we're leading? And so where's the metric for that? Anyhow.
Great. Anyone want to respond to that?
Well, I can start. I would love to have all of us weigh in, but you know, sometimes I talk to our teams about that balance of gratitude and striving. I think one of the great things about Arizona is we have had that spirit of striving for a very long time, and we're no longer small and scrappy, but we have that spirit of striving. So I would love to see us be in a leading position, maybe in those rankings. And maybe the answer to your question is when we move above the mid-20s across the board and we're more top 10 across the board. And yet I would like us to never get to the point where we're not feeling like we're still emerging and we're still going to have to fight for it. Because as soon as we get complacent that we've made great progress, that's when we drop back down.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Other question?
Yeah. I'm Helen Goldstein. I'm chair of the Risk Capital Committee for the Arizona Bioscience Roadmap, which is such a privilege. I was very excited and happy to see that as a challenge on one of the slides that we saw was the fact that we really do suffer from a lack of investors and diversity of investors coming into Arizona. We just do not have the same critical mass of VCs, like traditional bio VCs who are coming in. We do, however, have now quite a few big names, which in my world are called strategic investors, right? Like Mayo Ventures, for example. Can you maybe speak to the ways in which we might be able to use the Bioscience Roadmap to firstly encourage those VCs who don't know about how great we are to come and see what's going down here in Arizona, but also encourage some of our big enterprises to do the venture to really invest in our homegrown companies.
Great. Thank you for the question. Anyone want to start?
Jennifer?
Yeah.
I'll try to answer that question. Obviously, it has to do because the original question was the partnerships. One thing is to emphasize the great strength of our partnerships across the state and show the research that is occurring across the state, not just central Arizona, but across the state. But one thing that was not mentioned on the roadmap, and I'll mention that from what I saw and read, one thing is we're close to the border. One thing that whatever happens in Mexico, because that's the border we're at, may happen in the state of Arizona. Having that relationship can't strengthen or weaken, right? Depending on how you look at it. But it's one strength that we should always use. We use it at other types of industries, and the biosciences is not different than the other industries. That's at least one area that we can see and strengthen our vision from the VCs of how strong we are from all three universities, the industry sectors, and the partnerships that we are collaborating are moving forward.
Great, thank you. Dylan, did you have anything? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mayor. Yeah.
Certainly, thank you for your leadership and the Flinn BioCapital Conference. We have to double down on that type of event. Thank you to Creighton for hosting. It felt like it was bringing together so many individuals from the risk capital community with our startups. And I felt like people were really impressed and some of the out-of-state folks were pleasantly surprised with how much we had going on and the great opportunities. Certainly, since Joan is here, we can say that more matching funds for federal grants would be helpful and would help us be more competitive. Again, the city of Phoenix, we just unanimously voted to continue our commitment to funding the bioscience efforts, and we will try to get our companies more exposure. I want to be very supportive of the venture capital funds that have emerged here, but when I talk to the individuals who are leading those funds, they still say people are not as excited as we'd hoped about investing in those funds. So many of them are raising around right now, and the more we can help. Flynn has invested in through Bio in some of those efforts. I would love to see our philanthropic community, particularly the larger funds, do a little bit more of the money that they're hoping to grow being invested in Arizona. It's such a different culture sometimes in the Bay Area where I feel like people are like, can I get into the deals? And here people are like, oh, I don't know if my returns will be as good. We're not begging to get into the deals. So the more we can try to celebrate our big wins. We've had incredible exits in the biosciences and not, many people don't know our hometown success stories. And that was one of the roadmap strategies that I wanted to echo so much. How can we keep telling the stories of the folks who have had great exits? And many of them have given back. So the folks through WebPT are now, like Heidi Janenga gives through Golden Seeds and invests in the next generation of women entrepreneurs. But I don't know that that's widely known in our community. So that was one of the items in the roadmap where I was like, I think my peers and I can help there.
Thank you. Dylan, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to add, the strategic signaling is really important. So as Mayor Gallego said, the strategic signaling, telling Arizona's bioscience story, events like sending delegations to the Bio Conference, Flynn's BioCapital Conference, AZ Bio's White Hat Investor Conference. Those are activities that we need to continue to do, signal our successes, and make those messages very clear to investors that there's a lot of great things happening here. When we talk about some of those diversify the investment-based strategy in the startup ecosystem goal, the other thing that we saw is that states are increasingly getting creative with just connecting their startups and their ventures to other places. So there's a thing in the San Diego region called Investor Connect. They basically developed an investor network to connect their startups to investors throughout, and investors from other places are interested because they want access to the startups in the San Diego region. And that's something that startups from other states like Arizona can be a part of. And we just haven't gone into that yet. Another example is, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Innosphere Ventures, which is a Colorado-based incubator that brings together other states. And it's like we all put some research to the table so we can maximize the visibility of the startups from our ecosystem. So that's another cool example of just creative ways we can get more eyes on our startups.
Yeah, there you go. Just next week. Yeah.
Yes, I'm Matt Likens. I've led a couple of startup companies in biosciences over the last 19 years. But I wanted, on the topic of mentorship, there's a fairly new program, and in fact, Scarlet Spring is here. It's called Accelerate, and it's the Phoenix Biomedical Campus. And she and Brian Ellerman have really pulled together over 40 mentors with expertise in various disciplines, including commercialization of these technologies, ultimately getting these technologies out to help patients. And I think the second cohort of companies, 5 or 6 companies, are going through that process starting in about 2 weeks. And I think that's a great example of what we can do as a community to leverage. There is a lot of expertise here, but having someone to lead it that way. Scarlett, you can probably describe it more. If I can put you on the spot. I love putting Scarlett on the spot because she's so good.
Sure, I'll say a word or two. Yeah, I mean, really what happened was we didn't want to duplicate what was already in the market. And so we went on a listening tour, and we know that there's some incubators. We partnered and went up and spoke with Dr. Steve Lester and with Eric Bopp around the accelerator at the Mayo ASU and what would be different. And so we came up with something that would be the continuation of how do we help our most promising companies. So it's not technically an accelerator, but it's a continuation of that. And what we're looking at, as a matter of fact, of the cohort that is coming in, there's only one that's an Arizona base. So it's reaching out to Canada as well as to other areas. And it really is about how do you help these scale ready companies? Because what they need is relationships for clinical partners, because you can't de-risk an early stage company if you do not have a partner who will allow you to try it in a human being, or you don't have someone who will talk to you through product market fit and particularly payer strategies. And so those are kind of the 3 or 4 areas that Accelerate PBC is trying to help our most promising companies, because we're all in this together of getting more and more de-risk, because it's a little chicken and the egg. I do believe we'll get more money when we have more de-risk companies, and vice versa. We will get more companies when we can get them funded. And so we're just trying to play a role in that.
Great, thank you.
Matt, for being a partner.
Great. Thank you. I think that's all we have time for today. We're just about at time. I know there's energy for some more questions. I know we have some questions online. What we will do is take those questions and respond to those and send those out to all registered participants from today's event, so that there will be responses to those questions that were left unanswered. With that, please give our panel another round of applause. And I welcome Tammy back up to close us out. So I'm not. All right. You got it? Okay. So thank you to that panel. That was terrific. I really think we had a number of diverse perspectives there, and I appreciate that so much. As I look at the roadmap and the question about competitiveness, I think what resonates with me is that we are not trying to be Boston 2.0. We are going to be able to leapfrog with the assets and the convergence of things that are occurring here in Phoenix, here in Arizona, and bringing all those together put us in a remarkable position. And I just can't wait to work with all of you on that going forward. I just want to say thank you very much to Christy and Dylan. They've been our partners throughout this. We really appreciate all of your work over the past year. To the Flinn Foundation staff who are in this room and who are beyond this room, thank you for everything that you've put into this today. And a special shout out to Matt Ellsworth over here, who's really done a lot of work in this project, to Heather Carter, and then all of you who are here today and spending time with us, both online and in this room, and that gave inputs into the work that we've put together. We are very appreciative, and I just thank you so much. For everybody who's ready to go deeper on this, and I'm hoping that that is all of you. In fact, I'm not even hoping. I say thank you for being willing to go deeper on this. Please visit us at flinn.org, F-L-I-N-N. That's pretty easy. You're going to find resources. You're going to find more data about Arizona's progress, and then also the full Arizona Bioscience Roadmap, all of the work that's been put together. You saw a summary of it today, but you can go much deeper, and we welcome your feedback on it. Again, we're really positioning this as a living document. So we know things will change. Nothing stays the same. Mayor Gallego probably has another great announcement in her pocket that she's going to tell us about another industry or something that's coming, and that will change the dynamic and cause us to integrate with more. So we invite your feedback. We hope that you will download this. We hope that you will put this to use. We hope that you will reach out and partner with us in different ways, and we will reach our goals if we all take action. So for those of you who are with us today in person, we would like to invite you to a reception out in the lobby. And for those of you who are on Zoom, we hope you have a wonderful evening. And with that, thank you.